This is the American Roundtable. I'm Al Spry.
And I'm Bill Strickland.
Well, welcome to the American Roundtable, heard every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Here's what we have in store for you on this half hour of political power. Stormy Daniels, you'll get to know more about that name, I imagine. We got an update on her. Also, Robert De Niro. EPA's Scott Pruitt. There's a man who's upsetting a lot of people. And the man who actually texted the wrong guy when he was talking about a crime. That and more. If you want to find out more about this show on Tough TV 38 in Orlando and the Tough TV National Network, go to facebook.com/USA Roundtable. Of course, you'll be able to find out all about this. But let's dive right in, as we like to do. Bill, let's talk about Stormy Daniels. Do you know who Stormy Daniels is?
Yeah, she's a porn actress that has stated that she had an affair with Donald Trump 10, 11 years ago.
Now, whether this is true or not, one shall see. Kind of reminds me of some kind of a Clintonian thing, doesn't it?
All I got to say is if we can go back 10, 20, 30 years in everybody's life and all their screw-ups, I mean, you got to, at a particular time, just let that stuff go and deal with the president.
We all screw up. We're only human after all. But that's not the point. The point is, Stormy Daniels has kept people guessing about her alleged affair with the president, even after a full denial was issued. The former porn star said she was denying the affair not because she was paid hush money, but because it never happened. TMZ, however, noted the signature on the statement was very different from other examples of her signature. Jimmy Kimmel interviewed her on Jimmy Kimmel Live and said, "Did you sign this letter that was released today?" She said, "I don't know. Did I? That doesn't look like my signature, does it?" And now, here's an update. Now she says she's free to tell her story. Why? Because Trump's personal lawyer, according to Stormy Daniels, violated a non-disclosure agreement, an NDA. Says she plans to do so, according to her manager. Gina Rodriguez says Daniels believes lawyer Michael Cohen violated the NDA by admitting he paid the porn star $130,000 before the 2016 election, after she talked about disclosing her alleged 2006 affair with Trump. In another possible breach, the Daily Beast reports that Daniels will be mentioned in a book Cohen says is writing about his role in the Trump campaign. All of this is juicy stuff that's being heard on Jimmy Kimmel Live and other places. So, what do you think? Going to go public with the story, make a lot of money, and cause the president some embarrassment? Do you think there's anything to the story?
No, I believe that usually people of power, especially men, but people of power, they screw around a lot. I mean, that's just my personal observation. But yeah, something could have happened. It was a couple months after Trump's son Barron was born, and sometimes people get opportunities and they're not strong enough to pass on it. So maybe it did happen. We just have to wait it out and see what comes out. And that's why I always say, just because somebody accuses somebody of something or says something, let's take a look at the facts.
It is interesting, though, that $130,000 was paid to her. That's quite a bit of money.
That was a hell of a date, Al.
You pay sooner or you pay later, baby. This is American Roundtable. More on Tough TV 38 in Orlando and Tough TV after this. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. I'm Al Spry. Robert De Niro. I've always liked De Niro. Great actor. Humanitarian. All around pretty decent guy, I think. Thinks the U.S. is suffering from, quote, temporary insanity. Now, what would make him say this? Well, he took aim at the Trump administration's stance on climate change, telling a packed audience in the Middle East. And why is he dissing the United States and the president in the Middle East? I don't know why he's doing that. I remember that people have done that in the past, and usually other people react by saying, that's not really cool to criticize the United States or foreign governments like that in foreign places. I remember the Dixie Chicks lost their whole careers because of that. You think the same thing's going to happen to De Niro? Time will tell. However, his career's pretty much over anyway. I mean, I haven't seen a good movie by De Niro in a very long time. Saying that the United States is suffering from temporary insanity. said in a country he's describing, the head of the EPA suggested last week that global warming may be a good thing for humanity. Quote, I am talking about my own country, the United States of America. We don't like to say we are a backward country, so let's say we're suffering from a case of temporary insanity, he added. De Niro received applause and laughs from the Middle East crowd when he said the U.S. will eventually cure itself by voting our dangerous leader, out of office, the AP reports. He spoke Sunday at Dubai's World Government Summit. Your thoughts, Bill?
Well, calling somebody insane because you have a difference of opinion, I just don't think that's very cool. So let's talk facts once again. So what does he have that backs up his position? Even though I personally feel that you pollute the air and you breathe it in, that's not a good thing. So I think that,
yeah, I agree.
I don't think that that's very conducive to a healthy life or environment. But that doesn't mean that some people that believe the other way, that we should be out name calling and belittling our leaders, because government, big business, they've been in cahoots for a long time. So let's work through the issues. That's why we have all these people in Congress. Let them work out the details. Let them take a look at it, and then come up with a resolve and let the voters, like at least De Niro is saying, let the voters decide. That is a very positive thing.
I know it is, but to be honest with you, I think that he's going a little bit out on a limb here. It seems to me that with all of the, obviously there's faults that everyone has, but I think that Robert De Niro is an American. He's an American actor. He has every right to say what he's saying. But like former President Bush said, free speech is a two-way street, right? I think if you're angry about what Robert De Niro said, maybe you shouldn't go see his movies. Free speech is a two-way street, and people should speak out. Personally speaking, I don't think you should go to any foreign country and speak against America and Americans as a whole, because that's what he's basically doing, saying that we're all gone insane. The United States has gone insane.
It's kind of like having a problem with your husband or wife, and then you go out and complain about them to the neighbors.
Yeah, instead of dealing with it in your own house. I just find that a bit detestful. And I like Robert De Niro. I think, like I said, I think he's a good artist, a good actor. But maybe he should stick to acting. Maybe that's probably his forte.
Well, it's apparent that he's a concerned citizen. So maybe he should be involved with some organizations or try to put together some infomercials or whatever, and then talk about it.
Robert De Niro is not one to point fingers at the insanity of life, because there's a story that came out recently that he was involved years ago in a Parisian sex industry. It's all alleged, where they were dealing out young girls to stars, and the French government was looking the other way. So, again, before you cast stones, I think it's good to examine your own house, see what's crazy and who's crazy. More on this and other stories we're looking at on this week's edition of the American Roundtable. More on Facebook.com/USA Roundtable. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. Bill, this EPA Scott Pruitt, not sure if he's the right man for the job. Usually you want someone in the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, who actually wants to protect the environment. I'm thinking Mr. Pruitt, as smart as he probably is for reaching to a level of power, is not really the man for the job. Maybe he should be in another agency. We were talking about Robert De Niro, and we were being a little critical about him just because of how he said it. Not necessarily what he said, because I happen to think, obviously, global warming is happening, and it's not really a good thing, because we have rising sea levels. Miami is slated to be underwater in about 50 years, for parts of it. So, for example. But Scott Pruitt of the EPA is asking now whether global warming is necessarily a bad thing. As head of the Environmental Protection Agency, He's repeatedly questioned the scientific consensus, international scientific consensus. The rising levels of carbon dioxide from human-fueled activity are warming the planet. He's now taking a different tack, even if it is occurring. He's willing to maybe admit this. But maybe a warmer atmosphere is not necessarily a bad thing now, according to Scotty. Scotty says, quote, we know humans have most flourished during times of what? Warming trends. During an interview on KSNV, an NBC affiliate in Las Vegas. So I think there's an assumption, this is the quote, made, that because the climate is warming, that necessarily is a bad thing. Do we really know what the ideal surface temperature should be in the year 2100, in the year 2018? That's fairly arrogant for us to think we know exactly what it should be in 2100. Bill.
Well, not necessarily a bad thing. Is that right up there with it's not necessarily a bad thing to jump out of an airplane without a parachute?
It's not necessarily a bad thing to smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day. Sure, it'll shorten your lifespan, but is that necessarily a bad thing?
But to stand in front of a train, an Amtrak train going 150 miles an hour? I mean, is that what we're talking about? You know, when I see these things and I read the position that people are in, I do my own research. And I think that's something that we all should do. Instead of listening to celebrities or somebody that's in a power position, let's do our own research. Let's look it up. I know Jason, who's been a guest on here several times, his position is this is a natural occurrence throughout time, throughout Earth's history. So maybe we should kind of like investigate ourselves before we take a definitive position on anything.
But even so, I don't think global warming is a good thing, regardless of what the cause is. To take that tack seems at least amount irresponsible and at most completely disingenuous. Now, let's talk more about Scott Pruitt. He's defending his first-class travel. That's right, folks. If you didn't like him for what he said about global warming, you'll really not like him about what he says about how he needs to fly first class. I've never flown first class. Have you?
Only when somebody, a steward or stewardess, moved me up to the seat.
Because they do that because you're a super awesome guy. But besides that, you haven't paid for first class, right?
Correct.
Okay, well, he's now says he wasn't involved in the decision to put him in first class. He says was made after some unpleasant interactions with travelers opposed to the administration policies occurred. So now, because people are ragging on him when he's sitting in coach, he's being a wussy, and now he says, I need to sit in first class. Is this the guy, again, we need heading up the EPA?
Well, let's go a little bit further into the story, Al. There's been 70 threats on him. So if somebody is fanatic, he doesn't know if somebody's fanatical or they're just saying, I don't like your stance on pollution or global warming. I mean, every threat you have to take seriously, just like with the kids, what they were doing at home. So a decision was made, which was not his, to put him up in first class for security reasons. That's really what happened.
According to some, that's what happened, but perhaps, how many people know who he really is anyway? Maybe you should put him in a disguise. It might be cheaper than flying first class everywhere.
Yeah, nice mustache.
Maybe a little fake beard.
Yeah.
I think maybe that might be an answer.
The one you're going to wear next week.
You're giving it away.
Okay.
We're going to talk more about this unprecedented security that the EPA head is. What is he? The president? He's the EPA head. Why do you need all this? More on this and more as we close this edition of the American Roundtable on Tough TV 38 and Tough TV. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. I'm Al Spry.
And I'm Bill Strickland.
EPA Chief Scott Pruitt, we're talking about his travel propensities and the fact that he thinks global warming is a good thing. But you're right, he is under, Bill, you said under high security, very high security, an unprecedented level of protection. 12 new security officers. I have to laugh. It's all taxpayer funded. The total number keeping tabs on Pruitt to 30. Why don't they just fire him and get a guy that needs less help, that needs less security? Save the taxpayers some money for once.
Well, let's talk about the people that are threatening him. Let's talk about environmental extremists here. So maybe he does need security. I mean, we don't know the actual facts.
Well, sure, but let's just say that maybe he's not acting the way an EPA head should. The EPA head is supposed to be for the environment. That's why he's the head of the Environmental Protection Agency. He's not supposed to be for the possible destruction of the environment. So I think, like I said, I don't think the guy's in the right gig. He's in the wrong job. So you're spending $2 million a year on security for a guy who's terrible at what he's doing. Why don't they just get rid of him and get someone in cheaper that doesn't need $2 million of security?
What makes you think that another guy being in that position would take a different position?
They should, because again, it's the EPA head. He's supposed to be pro-EPA.
Didn't they just cut the EPA budget?
I don't know, but that would be kind of sad.
Less red tape. Wasn't that something and more business oriented? I think that just happened since Trump's been president.
Well, people who think the EPA isn't doing enough to protect the environment are threatening this guy. People who think the agency's overregulating are threatening this guy. He's getting from both sides, the left and the right. So, but you know, you never really heard of the head of the EPA much until this guy. This guy is he seems like he's creating his own destiny here.
He's kind of like a governmental rock star at this point.
I guess so. I'd rather just do my job and not have to be.
And nobody knows who Al Spry is.
Sure they do. People watch Tough TV 38 and Tough TV do, just like they knew who Bill Strickler is. But enough about us. How about if you allegedly kill a woman? Okay? Not you, because you're a wonderful law-abiding citizen watching the show. Let's say if you were dumb enough or stupid or evil enough to kill the living girlfriend that you were living with. Then you claim that it was a home invasion gone awry. Well, when the net starts closing in on you, the worst thing you want to do is text who you think was your former wife saying that, oh, I think I'm in trouble, I'm going to get arrested. And instead, text the detective who is handling the case. This is what happened to one David Romig. Twice thought he was texting his wife to say he feared he was going to be arrested for Sally Kaufman Ruff's death. But instead he texted Detective Damon Baxley, who had interviewed Romig after the incident. So, suffice it to say, he quoting the text, "I'm afraid I did something I don't remember. If I did this, I will kill myself." And then another text saying, "I think they were going to arrest me." He is now being held and charged with second-degree murder and will next appear in court on March 20th. Smart or dumb?
Well, it turns out that there are a couple items that did end up having his DNA on that he said that he didn't know anything about it. But this could be one of the perfect examples why you shouldn't text and drive. He was probably driving, text to the wrong person. So don't ever text and drive again.
And look who you're texting, for goodness sakes.
The cop.
Don't text the cop.
Or text and drive out.
Two things.
It can wait.
You see, you learn lessons here on American Roundtable.
I'm telling you.
If you want to find out more about this show, check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/USA Roundtable. If you want to find out more about what I do when I'm not doing the show, go to alspry.com. Alspry.com. You'll learn all kinds of stuff. Now, Prince Henrik, the French-born husband of the Danish monarch Queen Margrethe, who had publicly vented his frustration at not being the social equal of his wife or their son, who is in line to become Denmark's king, will not become Denmark's king. He died. He was 83. He was diagnosed with dementia last year and was hospitalized late last month with a lung infection. Earlier in the day, Henrik was moved from a Copenhagen hospital to the family's residence north of the capital, where the royal palace said he wished to spend his last moments. A later statement said Henrik died in his sleep and that the Queen and their two sons were at his side. So the Queen is still alive. Now, Prince Henrik had said previously that he didn't want to be buried next to the Queen. Right? The royal family's lost an anchor, according to Prime Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, adding Henrik had kept his good spirits till the end. Flags were set at half-mast. But here's the interesting thing. The wife gets the upper hand. Guess where he's going to be buried? He's going to be buried. Well, I mean, she could decide now. He's a stiff. He didn't want to be buried anywhere near her. Who knows? Maybe she put something in his coffee.
Hey, at 83 years old, he probably had a lot of time to think if he wanted to be buried next to his wife throughout eternity. And that's really his choice.
You think he didn't like her?
Well, who knows what goes on in relationships. So if he didn't want to be buried with her, but she had already had a specially designed sarcophagus waiting for the couple. So who knows if she was a control freak? Who knows?
Well, she's still around. She's going to bury him in it.
Exactly.
What do you think?
That's
She's
what
gonna,
I'm saying.
She's going to say you're not going to be buried in the sarcophagus?
Even though you don't want to be buried, you're going to be buried there anyway.
Specially designed for you, my dear dead dear.
So do you think that's right?
I think it's what's going to happen. She's the queen after all. Crown Prince Frederick, an International Olympic Committee member, left Pyeongchang, where the Winter Olympics is going on currently, before the official opening of the Olympic Games. Born on June 11, 1934 in France to parents of the noble title Count and Countess Henri Marie Jean André Lebord de Montzepact, married Denmark's future queen in 1967. Long time, some 51 years.
Hey, maybe he knows where he wants to go. But on another subject, let me just jump in here about the opioid epidemic. It turns out that a city here around Orlando is actually suing the opioid manufacturer. And the opioid manufacturer is cutting back on their advertising. So it looks like there are some steps being made by people to help eliminate or decrease this problem. And I have to applaud them for doing that.
Yes, opioids. Be very careful when if you have to take them. Try not to take them. If you want our advice, a lot of these opioids are highly addictive. We have had many opioid and heroin deaths relating to the people being put on these drugs. Thank you very much. My name's Al Spry.
And I'm Bill Strickler.
Remember, until next week, to keep it real.
And keep it tough.